Hello everyone, welcome to this weekly update video for Monday the 5th of June. So let's get into it. 2 weeks worth of stuff. Last week wasn't really enough to cover in a video, so we are doing it in this one. So for TFM, there's been 2 blog posts, and as I said, I'll kind of roll it into one. The overhead and MCP sections of the panels have generally been completed. There is a full list of 14 items in detail that have currently been completed on the panels on the blog. So if you want to read every single section, for example, of the overhead that's currently completed, you can do that. But for time's sake, I won't read them all here. Trim and transponder sections are also elements that have been completed. The panels dialog has also had a few changes that are going to be useful. So one thing is you will now be able to search for panels using F2. So if you are looking for a specific panel, or I would assume a subsection, you will be able to run a search, which is really helpful considering how many panels there are and how easy it is to forget where things are. You can also, the other key feature is rearrange panels. So whilst of course this isn't something you can do in the real aircraft, if for ease of use you wish to, you can basically drag key panels up to the top. You don't have to, and there is a way to reset it to factory settings. But if you find yourself using a panel consistently, maybe, I don't know, maybe you use first officer or something, but there's a panel, maybe the engines specifically, or maybe anti-ice or something like that, and you decide, okay, I'm going to drag this whole section up to the top so it's easily accessible, you can do that. The MCP boxes are now completed. These are the, of course, speed box, altitude box, heading box, etc. The good news is you will now also be able to access the auto brake and speed brake using the hotkeys from anywhere in the box. You don't have to be specifically focused on that element. There's also a reminder of the expo, so go register for that, at least online if you're not going to be there in person, so that you can hear TFM's presentation. As we've said before, it will eventually become publicly available, but not for months, probably until the expo has been completed and some time has passed. So that's the TFM update. Sounds like it's coming on nicely. The other thing to point out is that there is a great VATSIM event on this Saturday, the 5th of June. Cross the ditch. There are several waves departing from different areas, from New Zealand to Australia and the opposite way as well. You do have to go and book. The flight that a lot of people will be doing in Europe will be the first flight from Wellington to Sydney, because it's a convenient time in the evening for Europe, but there are other flights. Then it goes on from Sydney to Christchurch and Queenstown. So there's quite a few that you can do. This is a great event because we don't get to experience Australian ATC very often, and you also get to experience Oceanic as you pass over from Australia to New Zealand or vice versa. Which is something, again, you don't get to have very often, to head on to stations like Auckland Radio, whereas normally you'd have to fly a full Oceanic Atlantic crossing from Europe to North America or something like that to get Oceanic. So this gives you the chance to have a really interesting experience in about a 3-hour flight. So it really is a great event. In other news, we did have the Cross to Canaries event on the weekend on VATSIM. This was obviously not a BVI event, it's a VATSIM event, so that was pretty cool. That was very well attended by the VATSIM network in general. A lot of planes heading to some of these smaller airports like Tenerife. And in terms of new aircraft for Microsoft Flight Simulator, I did mention last week that there's the Avionics Update 2 beta that's coming out, which continues to see updates to improve the 787-10 and the 747-8. They're coming along nicely. Looks like they will be very good aircraft by the time that the beta becomes publicly released, with LNAV and VNAVs that work, and perfectly VATSIM ready aircraft, even if perhaps not top-notch sort of Phoenix or PMDG level or something like that. They'll be very, very good aircraft, and who knows what it will be possible for us in the future. Similarly, Aerosoft have also announced that their A330, which we're hoping for at some point over the next few months, will also be supplemented eventually, not on immediate release, but eventually with an A330neo. So we'll have the headwind freeware offerings for the A330neo and I believe A330ceo. They've also announced they're doing, and the payware offerings from Aerosoft with the A330 Neo and A330ceo, which will be coming first from Aerosoft, hopefully in the next few months. Hopefully as well we might get something from PMDG in the Expo with regard to their 777, which seems to be coming along rather well. I've said before, I would be quite surprised if we don't see that at some point this year, but exactly when and in what variant we'll get first and things like that, we don't know. P3D version 5.4 was released. This is a sort of a small update. There was a lot of stuff about VR, virtual reality, and things like that. The main thing for us was that there was some resource management improvements. So if you want to update to P3D version 5.4, you can just update the client. Basically, you need to uninstall the old client, so not the whole thing. You'll see in your uninstall section of Windows, you've got the client, the content, and the scenery. You can just uninstall the client, and then you can download the install client.msi from P3D's website, and then you can install the client. That way, everything in your simulator will not need to be reinstalled. You'll just be on P3D version 5.4 client, because the majority of the changes took place in the client and not the content and scenery. And I should say this is not the P3D version 6 that has been rumored. This is a rather minute update. There is a P3D version 6 that's been rumored and teased at by Lockheed Martin, which is rumored to include things like use of the new Unreal Visual Engine and potentially other new elements, and trying to keep it as visually pleasing as possible, given that Microsoft really knocked it out of the ballpark. Now, whether version 6 will be a big hit is kind of yet to be seen, and of course it's kind of yet to be seen which add-ons, which aircraft and scenery developers will choose to head over to version 6 if there are significant changes that are required to update programs and add-ons. And other than that, that's really going to do it. The next Microsoft update will be out on the 23rd, I believe, of June. That's when you can expect to see the beta with the avionics updates going into that. We don't know as of yet what that will mean immediately for the BVI community. It may mean that the AI has trouble flying some of the aircraft, such as the 748 and the 787, depending on whether Asobo make AI compatible with the significant system changes that will have taken place with those aircraft. But either way, we'll have to see about that, and I will see you potentially next week, if not then the week after, or whenever we have a significant portion of news to bring. Thanks very much for watching.